What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel and to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Mazda for a couple minutes before I try to get into some work. This Mazda has tried me in every possible way you can think of at this point. I think when I got it, my thought was I want a cheap turbo hatchback. I had a Mazdaspeed 3 a long time ago. And so I really liked the experience of driving it, even though it also had some problems for sure. And I knew that I was signing up for some maintenance and things I had to do when I got it. I never would have thought it would have been as bad as it has been in some ways. This car is still rewarding if you actually get to drive it, but it definitely takes a lot of work. So lately, this is what's been going on. Of course, I have my issue with the PO300 code. That I've been working to try to figure out to solve. I did determine that was a leaky intake valve, and so I'm working to try to do some things to mitigate that problem. But then also this past week, I got a PO456, which is evap leak. So then also this past week, at the same time, I was trying to determine what that rear noise was, and I replaced my rear wheel bearings in one of my previous videos. And in reality, that wasn't my problem at all. My problem was that my negative camber was so ridiculously out of spec in the back that I destroyed my two rear tires on the inside. So, which is a bummer because those were Continental DWS 06 Plus and they're not cheap. So I got two new tires, and then I set out to say, we're gonna keep pushing forward and fix all these problems. Number one, starting with alignment. So then I actually adjusted my rear camber arms to have less negative camber. And then I said to myself, I need to take it to a shop. So there's two things happening which will require me to be able to I need to be able to support the car safely from the rear jack points. And so that's a huge problem because both of the rear jack points are trashed. So I've been kind of putting off addressing that since I got this car, and now I'm gonna be forced to take care of that problem. So, and the looking at that problem has made me realize that it's not fixable really. Well, maybe in the short term, but the other thing that I've been thinking about when it comes to the rear jack points is that if I'm going to try to fix that PO456 code, which is, for those of you who don't know, is an evap leak code. The evap system on your car basically just saves fuel from evaporating from the fuel tank, recirculates it back in to the tank. Otherwise, while your car is sitting, the fuel can evaporate out of your tank. And some of the most common stuff that needs fixed whenever you have an evap leak is your gas cap. And this is a new gas cap here. And as you can see, there's a little rubber orange seal on the inside of it. And that seal can be bad sometimes. So just replacing your cap can fix the problem. In my case, it's probably going to be the actual purge canister solenoid, which is buried up inside the subframe in the back. So again, it's another reason why I actually need to be able to safely support the car from the rear jack stands. And each time I do that, it sounds really crunchy and really dangerous. So I bought this car, for around $5,000, which isn't much. And so I knew that, it was going to have problems. But what I did not understand was that, some of the things with it would have taken it easily to salvage title kind of car level. So number one, the engine being bad. And number two, just how bad this rear rust is. And so let's have a closer look at this, what I've got going on right now with the rear rust, and then my attempt to sort of patch that temporarily. We'll have a closer look here. Okay, guys, so I've got the outer plastic cover off, and that covers up a lot on this car. It also does a really good job of holding water in there to amplify rust problems like this. And so, as you can see here, this is the passenger side. As you can see here, the rust is pretty extensive. The rot is pretty bad. And I've actually cut out a little bit of the outer rocker here. And then up inside, you can see sort of the inner panel the inner rocker panel, which is this right here. And you can see how on the edge it's rotted and kind of bad, but then there's some decent metal up underneath. And then behind that, you can see where the actual unibody actually has a piece of metal that comes over and bends right here to meet the two rockers. And so that is how your pinch weld is formed. This is your pinch weld, which is essentially your rear jack point on this car. There was never any like protective panel put on the outside of it, which is a bad design in my opinion. If you look at my S2000, it's got a nice solid panel welded over top of the pinch weld to protect it from people who might jack the car up incorrectly there. But what I've done so far on this side is I've taken a air hammer and just sort of hit all along through here and here and here to understand what is truly rotted out and what is metal underneath. And then underneath, you can kind of see, not very strong, very well right here, but there are some solid pieces of metal here and here running along there and then back here. Those are not completely rotted out. They don't look great, though, that's for sure. And so what I'm going to do is some simple patchwork on this. And I'll show you what I mean on the other side where I've already gotten started. So this is the driver's side. And you can see I've cut off a substantial portion of the outer rocker here. And then on the inner rocker, I've grinded that down. And then actually, I had a friend, which I did not film this process, and then I'm not going to film this process because I'm just trying to work through the amount of time that friend is able to give me and not have to slow things down with filming, because anyone who's ever done YouTube knows filming makes things take 3 times as long. But essentially on the inside panel right here, we have welded in another piece of sheet metal here. This is just some 18 gauge, and then it's bent out. And then underneath, we have made a patch panel. I grinded off and cut off all the bad metal there and grinded it down, and then made a patch panel to cover that piece of the bad subframe. This is going to be actually bent up using a jack and then welded all the way around the edge. And that piece of metal actually has a piece of metal that bends and comes over to meet this one, as you can see here. So these two pieces of metal. And then finally, for the outside, I've actually got some replacement rockers from the older gen Mazda 3 that look like this. They actually line up just fine with that space. And this lip right here that I'm showing you will come to meet those two other flaps of metal that I just showed you. And so you'll have those 3 pieces of metal meeting each other right here to form a new pinch weld. And then once they come together, they'll be welded together here. And then we'll trim off to match the same level as this. And then I will probably take either a piece of angle iron or just a piece of diamond plate and weld on top of that so I can have a safe and secure jack point for the rear of the car. And then I will grind out anything else that's rusty around the area. I'll probably coat it all with Pour 15, which is a rust inhibitor type paint. So, but that is what's going on with the rear jack points and rust right now. So in the next frame you're going to see me jump to, I've already got the outer rocker welded on, and then I've also got that patch completely welded on the bottom, and also 2 pieces of diamond plate have been welded on the outside. So in order to form a better jack point. But when we welded on the outer rocker, there was still that little section that was not covered. And so I'm going to be cleaning that up, and then you're going to see me fill that in with bondo and then move forward from there. So let's get into it. All right, we've got our a patch glued in there, which is going to help us hold the Bondo in place. Sanded around the edge and got rid of the rest of that rust. And then I've got a first coat of Pour 15 on there, paint over rust product. And that's all over my patch on the bottom down here, up to here, where all the places we welded at. And then after that gets good and dry, I'll be applying this top coat over that as carefully as I can without blasting all over everything else. And then I'll also go ahead and fill this hole in with Bondo. And then we'll be sanding that primer over this whole thing on the outside here. And then a little bit of color match paint. And then only along the top edge, because the rocker plastic cover will cover the rest of this up. Okay guys, so we got our first application of quick dry Bondo in there. And we got a couple of low places here and here. So once this dries completely, I might go ahead and add like a little touch more in those spots before I sand it over. So having a look at our finished product here, if you look real close, you can see a bit of color difference there from where I painted that top section of that outer rocker, the outer replaced rocker. You can see a little bit of burn mark there from welds, but overall, it's not that big of a deal, not that big of a difference. And you can see down here below, the car's weight is currently sitting on his jack stand. And so if you look, I've got it right on that place where I welded the pieces of diamond plate. And then if you look up underneath, you see our patch. Or I should say my buddy welded it, I didn't weld it. But I cleaned it up afterwards. And then you can see our area back in here, what it looks like with the new rocker on the inside and the cover on the outside covering up. So overall, I'm pretty satisfied with that. And I've got functional rear jack stands again. So I'm able to have an alignment shop align the car like that, or whoever needs to jack up the car from the rear can do that with that spot there, and I'm good to go. I'll just have to duplicate all this work on the other side now. Well, overall, I am pretty satisfied with that, and I think that will work to get me through another year, maybe 2 years on this body before I need to go on and move on to a project where I probably move the engine over to another shell. So I do, like I said, like I mentioned, I do have to do the same work over on the passenger side, but it's basically going to be the same thing, which is going to be, I'm going to cut off a piece of the rocker. I'm going to bend a piece of 20 gauge or 18 gauge up to match the inner rocker shape. Then I'm going to cut a patch and then bend that to match that first rocker. And then I'm going to cut that outside piece of the rocker. I'm going to meet those 3 pieces of metal together to make a new jack point. So, or a new pinch weld is what I should say, which will be the jack point. But process will be the same on that side. So that's going to wrap it up for this video for now. I appreciate anybody who watched this long or checked this out. Please, if you would consider subscribing to my channel if you found any of this content useful. I know that rust on these cars and the rear subframe area around the back of the jack points is a common thing. And so if you're trying to make your chassis last a little bit longer, this can help. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.